Thank you, Chairman. We return to the bell in Haverhill, which was deferred from the last meeting of the committee, where members sought to defer the application in order that we may have discussions with the applicant on an application to consider the option of bringing the application back without any off-street car parking provision. The applicant has considered that and was present at the meeting last month and has responded to the council and asked for the application to be determined as submitted. Just to remind members of the site, obviously I'm aware members did actually visit the site. We'll quickly run through a couple of the slides. This is the same presentation as we had last month. This is the Bell Hotel that we're talking about here. The proposal is to convert the ground floor from a public house to a retail shop. This part of the building is already residential accommodation above, but the proposal will extend the building and create 11 flats in total, a net increase of 9. The issue that members were concerned with was the provision of on-site, off-street car parking for 8 vehicles that would take access from this existing access point here. I'm not going to run through all the slides. I'm going to leave it on this slide. The issue that really was concerning members was whether this development and approval of this development would in any way prejudice the achievements of pedestrianisation in the town centre, if that is what is decided. The matter is being considered through the development of a town centre master plan. That work is underway. What I would stress to members is that what we're considering here is the reuse of an existing building that is in a semi-derelict state. The existing street is pedestrianised at the moment between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock. It is already pedestrianised. We're not talking about future pedestrianisation. It is pedestrianised. There is no vehicular access at that time. The applicant knows that, and the applicant is duty-bound to work with that. Outside those hours, you can access the site. Approval of this application that is before members today will not change that situation. It remains exactly the same. The difference is the scheme before you, it does not provide rear access to the site, but it does facilitate it. It certainly doesn't prejudice it. So in that respect, any argument that this would prejudice the achievement of pedestrianisation is without foundation. Actually, the development before you provides an opportunity which does not exist at the moment to have access from the rear. So the matter has come before you unamended. The officer's recommendation remains that of approval. I have to report I have received some further communications. I received a letter from 33 separate businesses in the town supporting the application. And if I could just read, it's quite short, and I will just read it out for you. We're going to need these. It says, I'm writing in support of S2 Estates planning application for redevelopment of the Bell Public House at 9 High Street, Haverhill. As a local business based in the town, I believe the plans will be of real benefit in terms of substantial investment in the High Street to return the former pub to productive and appropriate new use, attracting a new retail business to the town centre, supporting the vitality and sustainability of the centre, developing much needed new homes that will further add to the vibrancy and attractiveness of the town centre, creating jobs associated with construction and employment that will deliver follow-on benefits to the local community. It goes on to say, I also support the car parking provision for the new homes included in the application and object to any further pedestrianisation of the High Street. Please ensure that my views are taken into account at the Borough Council's Development Control Committee on the 5th of February. I think that latter paragraph is perhaps a discussion for another day, and will be a part of the ongoing master plan process. I also have to report that the Town Council had wished to address this meeting, but obviously they had the opportunity to speak at the last meeting. There is no second opportunity. I did contact the Town Clerk and advised that he was welcome to submit any views from the Town Council, and I would report those to the committee. He was grateful for the opportunity, but actually stated that there would be a member attending who would represent the views of the Town Council, and I believe Councillor Nettleton will be putting forward the views of the Town Council. As I stated just now, the recommendation before you remains one of approval.
Can you look down until that one? Right, we have no public speaking on this one, and first one I have is Councillor Rushton.
Again. Yes, well, this is actually a change because I do actually support Officer recommendation for this. A lot of what I was going to say has been said, so I'll go through it very quickly and succinctly. Firstly, we saw some parked cars, as on the photograph, who are parking there at the moment. I don't see that another 8 cars in the immediate vicinity is going to make much difference. Future residents would be well aware of the constraints of restricted access, and they would obviously choose to avoid this area if that was a problem with them. The pub was shut. One assumes it was because it was not profitable. Therefore, a change of use to retail seems a sensible way forward, and as such wouldn't need planning permission, as I understand. And they have a ready-made car park at the back, should that happen. So I think this is a good site. I think that it will again provide needed accommodation in Haverhill, and it does beg the question that access by the rear could well be possible in the future, which would prevent any cars having to come out of that entrance. And I'm happy to move approval.
Councillor Stevens.
Well, Chairman, we did discuss when it came before us that there were concerns locally from the Town Council and local members, and that's why I think we took the cautious approach of deferment. But having looked at the site, I think it's absolutely crucial that we remain and the vibrancy of Haverhill High Street and get this back in business as quick as possible. There are some interesting architectural features to the front of the old pub. The back of the yard is appalling, but that's not a planning matter. But there are opportunities, should the High Street be completely pedestrianised, of access to the rear of this site and further expansion in line with the Haverhill Master Plan. So I have no hesitation in approving this site and the application which is before us.
Thank you. Councillor Nettleton, did you have a speech tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, as you know, I'm substituting for Maureen Byrne, and Maureen would have said what I'm going to say now on behalf of the Town Council. So I've got from Colin Poole, Mr. Chairman, so if you mind if I just read that out. I'd then like to add my own view following the site visit. Okay? First of all, 6 points. The development of residential properties does not contribute to the vitality and vibrancy of the High Street. The lease of the ground floor retail unit does and is welcomed, but the viability of the retail unit is surely independent of residential flats. 2. The development of flats is not really the problem, it is the access issue they raise. The suggestion by the DCC members to exclude car parking was entirely sensible, and the agent is attempting to conflate these separate issues into one. 3. Poor transport links and lack of sustainable transport options and employment for a site that is in the middle of the central business district and adjacent to the bus station is laughable. 4. The description of the master plan is misleading and disappointing. I personally told the author of the letter in the presence of the planning officer that the master plan consultation was already underway. Coincidentally, it is the planning officer this application is now leading on it. Timetable for drafting, consultation and adoption and known in the description of unreasonable, unnecessary, indeterminate delays is completely wrong. 5. I've had it confirmed by the police there are no residence permits that would allow the occupants of the flats to drive in or out of the site between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday to Saturday. So while the planning officer is technically correct to argue that the bell has no restrictions in regard to vehicle access, this is somewhat besides the point, as the highway restrictions applies to any vehicle actually approaching or leaving the access. Whatever the applicant may claim about current rights, the fact is that the site right now can only be accessed at unrestricted times. This will apply to the construction traffic too, and applicants' vehicles parked at the site during the recent site visit reached there illegally. Not a great advert for the attention of the applicant. 6. Planning conditions should be set confirming that the applicant is required to obey all highway restrictions during the construction phase and to submit in writing to the council confirmation that all prospective owners of the flats are informed, caveat emptor, that A. the properties are within a restricted zone for traffic. B. The residency confirms no right for vehicle access during restricted hours. And C. that if the anticipated full pedestrianisation of the High Street comes to pass, they will have no right to vehicle access at any time and can anticipate physical restrictions as exit on Queen Street will put in place. Thank you, that's the 6th point. Could I just say that on the site visit that we did last week, this was the most shocking site visit I went on. This is in the centre of the town, and as Peter Stevens has pointed out, we need to be bringing forward the vitality of the town centre. So I was quite shocked by the direction. So something needs to happen on this site. I think it's important that there is a development on the site. To talk about, Krishna mentioned it's pedestrianised. Well, when we were there between 10 and 4, there were cars parked everywhere and cars whizzing around the corner past the church. So if that's pedestrianisation, I'd rather live on the motorway, to be honest. It's just, I don't know what the situation is in here with regard to that, but certainly there's no enforcement of that particular point. So it's pedestrianisation in name only. There's nobody there to actually enforce it. So that's my impression of being on the site. So I'm looking at it. Personally, I would say that the site needs to be developed. This is the application that the applicant wants determined. So I think perhaps I'm inclined towards personally to support this application. I'm mindful of what the Maureen Byrne would have said, and I'm reminded of the Town Council's point of view, but I just feel as though perhaps we need to be moving this site forward, so I would support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the redevelopment of the Bell into a retail business would be very desirable indeed. The deterioration of that building is fast approaching a total wreck, and the quicker something's done about it, the better. However, that's not the problem. The problem is this question of residential accommodation in the scheme, and that the access, vehicle access to that residential accommodation will be from the High Street. And we've already heard there is a restriction on the vehicle access between the hours of 10 and 4. And whilst you may think that that restriction hardly works, we have a PCSO going up and down that street all day and every day, issuing tickets to people who shouldn't be there. And it's a very difficult thing to police, and to have actual residential properties with the only access to them from the High Street is only going to aggravate the situation further. And I think what we really should be doing is looking at how the rear access could be developed at the same time as the whole development of this type is going on. So I would urge us to get the Bell sorted out and get a decent facade on the premises, but can we do something about getting the rear access to vehicles and not coming from the High Street?
Thank you. Councillor Rushton, got a written order.
Sorry.
Next, Councillor Millway.
Thank you, Chairman. Once again, that site visit was really helpful, and I was extremely impressed with how clean, tidy, vibrant the High Street looked in Haverhill. It really was a pleasure to walk down there and see so many people going up and down the High Street. And there's no doubt that this is the eyesore of the High Street. So I apologise to the officer for any remarks might have made at the last meeting, but I completely concur with his sentiments today, having seen it for myself just recently with the site visit. What I do think is a shame that the applicants haven't come forward with a scheme for rear access. I have no doubt there's financial reasons for that, but I do think during construction it is going to be quite difficult and quite tight to get lorries in and out of that entrance. But, as in Bury, I think it's terrific that we have flats on high streets, so we do have people who live, work and shop and play all within the town centre because it adds to the vibrancy. But, I do concur with the town council that access at this particular point is going to be difficult. There's no doubt about that. And I would urge the applicants to get on, have negotiations with the car park owners and try to move forward with some access for the rear entrance. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Chair. I too am a huge champion of Haverhill High Street. I know the site well, but I think I should probably declare an interest that while I don't believe is prejudicial in any way, some people might regard it as such, because I lead on the Town Centre Master Planning project, and therefore I don't feel that it's appropriate to vote in this debate.
Thank you. Councillor Beckett.
Thank you for allowing me to come back. It's just the remark that Tim Marks made about PCO was walking up and down that, and that brings to mind St Andrew Street South here in Bury St Edmunds, where, for years we've had a similar situation. It just seems to me that the fairly obvious way to deal with this, as it's a restriction centre for, is stick a congestion charging point around by Queen Street there, charge them £2 to come through, and then all stop doing it. It's quite simple. And then move over to civil enforcement for the rest of the area, instead of when the police do it, where they should be out nicking villains. Thank you.
Thank you.
Turn on the asphalt.
Councillor Clifton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to state that I think the developer ought to warn the future tenants of the restrictions of pedestrianisation. Also, the rear access will never take place as long as the place remains empty as it is at the moment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Clifton. Right, answers please, Chris.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'll try and be brief. If I just quickly whiz through the Town Council points, residential properties don't contribute to the vitality and vibrancy of the High Street. I think people familiar with the Porter's Review, and as Councillor White said, they do. Vibrant town centres do not rely solely on retail. They rely on a multiplicity of uses, and residential is an important part of that. Development, in fact, not really the problem, it's the access issue they raise. Members' suggestion to exclude parking was sensible. Agent is attempting, is ignoring that. Yes, it was put forward as an option, but it's always an option. We won't say that they had to withdraw the car parking. Poor transport links. Haverhill has good transport links with Cambridge. It is close to the bus station, but actually you ask any resident of Cambridge how you travel in other directions other than by the private car, most people tend to rely on them. It's a market town within a rural area. You all know that. Description of the master plan, misleading and disappointing, and that it is underway. Yes, the master plan is underway, and we hope to have the draft in the summer and hopefully have it adopted in the autumn. But this, as you will have seen from the building, it needs a decision on it now. We can't defer until after that time. There are no residence permits. Absolutely correct. As I stated in the presentation earlier, the existing restriction is there already. We're not talking about future pedestrianisation, we're talking about the situation as it exists today. Could we put conditions on requiring them to obey all highway restrictions? No, we can't. That would be ultra vires. As members are well aware, planning conditions have to relate to planning law. Where there is other legislation in place, that should be relied upon, and that is the situation here. There is already legislation in place which can be relied upon. However, and as Councillor Clifton Brown raised, should the developer warn future residents? Yes, they should, and in fact they are proposing a unilateral obligation which places an obligation upon the developer to inform residents of restrictions and the fact that there might be future changes. Councillor Marks mentioned yes, the access will be from the High Street, and could we not be developing rear access? At this stage, until the wider area comes forward for development at the rear, we can't prejudge that. But what the development does do, it's designed in such a way that access can be provided from the rear. It's not in any way prejudicing achieving that in the future. And that's future-proofing it, and that's an important part of the scheme. Councillor Margay White, all is forgiven. And I think that's about it. Yeah.
We've gone a bit far, you know, Chris. Right, everybody happy? Proposed and seconded for approval as per your conditions on 112, 113. All those in favour, please show.